Welcome everyone to an episode of Average Desi Joe, bringing you tips, tricks, and reviews. And today I'm going to bring you something that's quite fascinating to me. I grew up loving Asterix and Obelix comic books. If you don't know anything about it, it is a French comic book about a village of indomitable Gaulish warriors fighting the Roman Empire with the aid of a magic potion. And this is during the era of Julius Caesar. There are about 38 books in total, and 27 were kind of original, and there's a few that came along. And what I found really interesting about this one, and I've read this numerous times, but what I'm just realizing, and hopefully there's people out there who don't know this, is the number of references to the James Bond series, and especially when it comes to Sean Connery. Uh, so, and I just wanted to point out a few places where it's actually quite stark. For example, here you'll see Julius Caesar asking his chief of Secret Service of MI6, and that's written in Roman numerals, so it actually does mean MI6. So it's quite fascinating that you have MI6 in this, and that's the chief of MI6. And what basically the chief is saying is, I have an agent that I can send to basically infiltrate this Gaulish village that has stood against Julius Caesar. And when Caesar is wondering who he's going to send, they basically points out through this double agent, or this agent that is their best. And if we turn the page, what you will notice, and what I find quite fascinating, is the uncanny resemblance with Sean Connery as the agent. And not only is the uncanny resemblance, but also he is called Dubbelosix. So quite fascinating that they didn't call it 007, but in line with all the agents, identification, he is basically called 006. And it's just incredible, the resemblance to Sean Connery there. And not only that, as we move along, the chief, well, two things to notice. One, he's carrying this pedestal which he was standing on, and two, the chief of MI6 provides him with this carrier fly, and basically says it's trained to bring messages in a micro papyrus and in record time, which is almost like Q handing James Bond some of the gadgets. So this becomes like the messaging gadget for 006, which is a very interesting fact. And obviously they hand him the secret instructions, which are to be read once he leaves the city of Rome. And we'll get back to that piece. But as you see here, 006, again, just like James Bond and his gadgets, he presses a button, and that pedestal that he was standing on all of a sudden turns into a chariot. So quite fascinating story there. And obviously there's some sarcasm where he says, I wasn't able to fold up horses in there. So that's quite funny. But again, the sheet that he was provided, basically it says it's going to destruct after, if you've read it this time, the papyrus will auto destruct. So for the Roman era to have all those uncanny references to James Bond era, it's really interesting. And not only that, as we move along, and without going too much in the story because I don't want to spoil it for you, basically Asterix and Obelix go on a search to find this druid, and when they do find him, he's on his chariot, and when he gets to the chariot, they get surrounded by Romans, and the Romans want to invade, obviously, the Gauls, and they want to fight them. But instead of fighting, 006 turns out there's this kind of a bow from his chariot. So his chariot, just like James Bond has the DB6 with all the different gadgetry in here, 006 has his chariot, which does all kinds of fascinating things. A really interesting thing, when people are chasing him, spits out oil, just like the DB6 did. So quite an uncanny references here. And obviously they jump off the cliff, and supposedly he hits a button and somehow it's supposed to save him, but that doesn't necessarily happen. And then we go on to further pages. For example, we look at page 45, and again, it's all about how in secret, for queen and country. And here he's fighting for, he's still trying to save the mission, sending out these secret messages to Caesar in order to stop these Gauls from heading back home. And even at the end, it's actually, well, I don't want to spoil the ending, but there's a few different references to the James Bond era, which I found very interesting. So definitely, this series, and there's a few of them here. This is a series that I highly recommend. There'll be a link in the description below, but as you can see, there's a number of these, and they're all, and it's amazing read for both adults and kids. Very fascinating. They go all over the world. It's all about the ancient empire, and it's all about friendship and respect, and just a great read, and very relaxing. So highly recommend Asterix and Obelix, and definitely these uncanny references to the James Bond era, especially in this book, which I found was so fascinating, especially reading this over and over again and never really realizing it till now. So hopefully you enjoy it. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day.